This entire situation is kind of fricked, and honestly, I'm a bit heartbroken for my husband. Real names, Ita. I'm Sean, male 37. My husband is Zach, male 36, and my son is 16, not saying his name. I divorced my ex-wife after she cheated on me for the entirety of our marriage. That was over a decade ago, anymore. Son is mine already, over and done. I met Zach when I was 28, my son was 7. Me and Zach hit it off instantly. I was finally in a place to start dating again, and thankfully he was the first person I was interested in. We connected on everything, me and my ex-wife did, and a million more things. People say life has a plan for you, and honestly, I believe it. I'd go through a million more divorces and being cheated on over and over if I ended up with him every time. One of the big things was my son. Zach was hesitant at first just because of the situation, but he wanted a family badly, and I was excited for him to meet my son. After dating for a year, I talked to my ex and told her I'm introducing our son to a guy I'm seeing. Told her it's serious and I see a future with him. She was happy for me. We have a very good relationship now. Just told me to tell her when I was going to do it so she can be prepared if our son had any questions for her when he visited next. Zach and my son were best friends, did everything together. They loved playing Minecraft together. They spent hours sitting in front of the TV. I loved watching them. I was so freaking happy. The first person I found after my ex was this amazing. After about 6 months, I asked Zach to move in, and the rest is exactly as I've been describing. Amazing. My son started calling Zach his other dad when he was 10. Very sweet moment, which makes this hurt worse. Well, last weekend my son had 3 of his friends over. They were playing video games in his room, and I just left to do grocery shopping for the week, so it was just them and Zach. I don't know how this topic came up, but things got very hateful. My husband was sitting on the couch, and I guess my son and his friends thought me and him left, but it was just me. My son's room is connected to the living room, so if you're sitting in the living room, it's not super hard to hear what's going on in his room if he's being loud enough. 4 teenage boys playing video games. One of them said, "How's it feel having a F slur? I decake if I can say it or not on here." As a father. My son laughed and said kinda shitty. They said my husband probably touched him when he was little, and my son replied, "He can try it now. He'll get his butt beat." So not even being a weenie to Zach, but now also threatening him over something we all know he would never do. They kept saying, "Shoot, like which one do you think takes it in the butt?" Probably the F slur. At least your real dad still likes women. Just a bunch of hateful shoot. My husband sat there listening to it all silently, crying. Also, Zach has spent good 4 hours a day at the gym for the last 3 years. So I decay who's getting their butt beat, but it ain't him. I got home about 2 hours later to my husband sitting in his car with a bag packed waiting for me so he could leave but didn't want to leave my son alone. I asked what's going on, why are you leaving, and he told me everything. I tried to understand as best I could. I insisted he wasn't serious, he's just being a stupid kid, acting tough with his friends, but it didn't matter, the damage was done. Zach left and I went inside and went off on my son. His friends left, and I spent a good 3 hours going back and forth with my son. At first, he was very unapologetic and kind of agreed with his friends. I asked if he actually thought my husband sexually abused him when he was younger, and he said no, but kids block those kinds of memories out, so really, who knows? I told him to pack his chute. He's living with his mother. Info: his mom lives 3 hours away, which means new school, new friends if at all, less private space, as he'd have to share a room with his stepbrother, etc. Just everything that you'd expect going from a single kid in a house to one of 4. My son instantly changed his attitude. He was crying, begging me not to send him away. He didn't mean it, he was just lying to seem cool to his friends. I asked why did he double down when they left, and he didn't have an answer. I told him to pack his chute, he's leaving in the morning. Called my ex, told her the situation, and she agrees he needs something drastic. What he did wasn't okay at all. Fast forward to now, and my husband is back, but he cries every night. Honestly, it feels like he's mourning, which I don't want, because when you mourn, you don't get over someone, you get as close to indifferent as possible to keep living your life without them. I don't want that. I want my husband and my son to have that strong bond I know they have and don't want them to throw it away over this. I don't agree with what my son did, but those accusations, at minimum, can ruin someone's life and at most end it. I'm disgusted with my son. He calls me every day, tells me he misses me and Zach and wants to come home. I stay strong on the phone, but after I break down and my husband tries to console me, tells me my son can come back and he will leave, but no, I'm not doing that. I just don't know what to do. I miss my son. I miss coming home and seeing them spending time together. I've thought about therapy for him, but he said no. You can't force therapy on someone. They'll just sit there for an hour and piss away $400. I need advice. Now for a few comments. Stoner Therapist 89. Not the idiot. Therapist here, but obviously everyone is different, so take it with a grain of salt. Parenting is sometimes wildly difficult, and this is one of those times. You did exactly the right thing. There are so many lessons for your son to learn here. Just name a few. He needs to not only learn the consequences of his actions, but that some things truly cannot be taken back. Trying to be cool by being a jerk for absolutely no reason will not end well. It will not only alienate the people who actually care about you, but the people who get off on being unkind will eventually turn on you too. Most people do not get along with their step-parents, and he has been taking that for granted. Separately, if you let him back and Zach leaves, your relationship with your son will be forever altered, as well as your son's life in general. All the love Zach has for him and their connection can be repaired once he gets his head out of his butt. If Zach leaves, your son will know he ruined his father's relationship for the rest of his life. The guilt and resentment from that can cause huge problems later on in life. This can be worked on. It can be resolved. I strongly suggest making family therapy a requirement for moving back into the house with an LGBTQIA+ friendly therapist who can get down to the root of how harmful this was and make him understand that. Individual therapy is also a great idea, but family dynamic stuff needs to take priority. Grimwall. This is great advice. But considering the man alleged he was possibly a child toucher, OP's husband clearly isn't going to risk his future on someone who is capable of being that callous. I wouldn't either. This is fixable, but it doesn't mean it will be. Now for the post. It's not any different if a blended family comes together and the daughter accuses her stepdad of touching her. There was literally a post 2 months ago about this exactly. He moved out, divorced the mom, and refused to stop the divorce once she confessed her bio dad put her up to it so he could mess with the mom. Kid thought dad would come back if it happened. Newsflash, he didn't. That said, everyone told him that his future wasn't worth risking it. Just because he didn't get a full-on accusation and a police investigation doesn't mean he should be asked to risk it. I'm saying the same here. Zach said he would move out if the son came back. I think we are likely beyond counseling, at least for a while, certainly not while he's a minor. There is hope in the future, though, and this is the way. Now for a few comments. Curious Penguin Socks. Yep, I wouldn't risk it, and neither should Zach. Some things cannot be taken back. Some harms cannot be undone. I tell my kids this when we talk about choosing our words. Words are like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of the tube, it's almost impossible to put it back. Judgment, not the idiot. Update, 2 days later. This will be long, sorry. Not going to lie, entire OG post was basically a disaster. I expected a few replies with only one actually being helpful, and then the post die. Didn't happen that way. Wish it did though. So much back and forth, and so much hate towards me being gay. I expected some, but holy shoot. I was done with that post when someone suggested me and my husband both abuse my son sexually. Just no. Disaster. I thought living in bumfrick Montana was bad with the hateful shoot I deal with. As for the update, I spent the day yesterday with my son. A lot of people accused me of not taking his claims seriously. I did. The first 30 minutes of our initial talk, when this all happened, was about if he actually was abused. He said no. I asked again when I got here. I made sure to let him know there is no one I'd believe over him. He won't be punished for saying the truth if he was abused for not. But I needed to know. Again, he said no, he was never touched or rapped by my husband. On to the questions and his answers. Why would you say something so dangerous? My son said he was feeling rejected by my husband since, as of late, he hasn't been spending nearly as much time with him. Which is true. A large part of my husband's life is my son. Zach tutors him, he coaches him in his sport, basketball, he goes on morning runs with my son. He used to drive him to and from school before my son got his car. Just they both share a lot of interests, and as a kid step-parent dynamic, they spend a lot of time together. Towards the end of last year's summer, when my son was still at his mother's, my husband talked to me. He said he wanted to start spending more time apart, but not that kind of apart. He wanted to have more of a social life. He wanted to be able to do things away from us, but not like separate, if that makes sense. He realized my son would be leaving for college in 2-ish years, and my son was such a large part of his life, he didn't want to become depressed after he left with nothing to do. I agreed, said it was a good idea, and he had my full support as long as he still came home every night at a reasonable time and didn't let his relationship with my son suffer or anything. As of now, yes, it is different. My son doesn't need rides to school. He doesn't need tutoring. He doesn't do basketball anymore. Their hobbies are still the same, but my husband has been spending less time at home. It's not like he's gone all hours of the day and comes back at 3 a.m., but he has a healthy social life. IDK, how to explain it? Do you realize how dangerous it is to say something like that if it isn't true? He said yes, and he didn't think anyone was listening. He was just going along with his friend's shoot. That didn't make sense to me, so I asked, why did he stand by his statement after I sent his friends home? He said he thought he shouldn't back down from something he says. Kind of like a ride or die, IDK. I told him that's freaking stupid and never do that, especially if he regrets what he said and it wasn't true in the first place. He said he knows he realized that when it happened, but he just couldn't stop himself from keeping it up. It didn't hit him that it was serious until I told him he's going to stay with his mother. Why do you want to be friends with people that talk so much, shoot about your parents? He doesn't want to, but the kids bully the shoot out of everyone they don't like, and he feels like he's in too deep to back out now. That I do understand. I had kids in my school like that. Bully everyone. They were cool to me though, until they found out I was gay. Then they fricked my last few years of high school up. I told him, I get it to some degree, but he doesn't have to add in to what they're saying. Small chuckle and a fuck you is usually enough to get people to move on from something. I also asked about them bullying him because they kind of were. He said, yeah, but they're not that bad with it. They just rip into him every so often about having gay dads, and I guess over time, it made my son feel poorly towards my husband. The distance my husband was setting with my son, mixed with his friends, saying the shoot they do just added up to that. I told him I understood. I want to make it clear, I don't support what he said. I understand the emotions behind it, though. Why didn't you talk to us about how you were feeling? He said he didn't want to start anything. My husband and him are still close. He didn't know how he felt and was more confused than anything. So why say something that would cause a fight if he didn't even know if he felt that way? I also understood this. At this point, I think this is just one miscommunication after another. Open dialogue would have prevented all of this from happening. There were a lot more questions, but me and my ex ended with, do you actually feel remorseful for what you said, or are you just tired of sleeping in the same room as a 7-year-old? He's actually remorseful. Told me, even if he was staying there all year, he would still feel terrible over what he said about Zach. Reassured him again, if anything did happen, now is the time to speak, and I will believe him again. He said no. He started crying, saying he just missed us. Emotional moment, we hugged, told him I loved him, and that would never change. Asked him to leave the room so me and his mother could talk. We decided on a month-to-month assessment to see when he would get privileges back, ending with him coming home. There were conditions to all of this, like family therapy, solo therapy, cutting his friends off completely, which I would help with. He was against the solo therapy, but came around. He asked if Zach was here. I said no, but would ask him if he wanted to come next time, which my son smiled at. I still agree. Sending my son to my ex-wife's was the right move. A lot of people aggressively disagree, which is fine. My parenting style isn't for everyone. One of you told me I should beat the kids up though, so do I really care if some of you disagree with how I parent? I did not really. Situation still sucks. I did what to say. I miss my son. He isn't coming home right now, and I wish I was leaving her house with him. As it stands right now, son is living with his mother and her family. He will get his phone and PS5 and car back at the end of the first, second, and third month in that order. He will be able to move out of the room he's currently in and into the guest house at the end of month 4. Every month after that is touch and go, and we'll discuss at the end of each month what we think. My son will do bi-weekly solo therapy, and we will all do bi-weekly family therapy. We see it as he should do solo therapy 1 week, then family therapy the next. He can come back sooner. I want him back. My husband wants him back. He's wanted him back since he left. His mother is holding strong, but she also sees he's just miserable, so I think she'll break at some point and give up the guest house early. It is what it is. At the end of the night, my son asked if Zach would want to hear from him so he could apologize, and I told him yes. I've told him yes a few times now. Zach would love to hear from him. I doubt he'd have to wait longer than 1 ring before Zach picked up. My son called him as I was leaving, so I know they spoke. I don't know about what, though. When I got home, Zach was feeling like shoot and blaming himself more for all of this. I told him it's no one's fault. We just needed to talk to each other more. All in all, I think my son is remorseful. He was just feeling trapped and isolated in a shitty situation and didn't know how to get out of it. I feel for him, and I wish I saw what was happening sooner. Thank you all for the advice. Or most of you. Some of you were just nasty and hateful. Someone on my first post called Stoner Therapist or something like that gave good advice. I didn't say it on that post, but if you read this, thanks for it. Next update will be when he comes home. Hopefully it will be soon. Thanks, y'all. Now for a few comments. Uzzy Girl 6576 female. Hey, sounds like you've had a heck of a roller coaster. Family dynamics can turn into a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are hiding under the couch cushions. You did what you thought was best in a tough situation, and it's clear you care deeply for your son and your husband. Props to you for navigating such choppy waters and for keeping communication open, even when it's as fun as stepping on Legos in the dark. It's great to hear that you're setting up some therapy. It's like oiling the squeaky wheels of family interaction. Just remember, healing and understanding take time, like fine wine or figuring out why the printer won't work even though it's plugged in and the Wi-Fi is fine. Keeping my fingers crossed that your family puzzle comes together smoothly, even if it takes a bit more searching under the furniture for those missing pieces. Here's to hoping the next update is full of good news and homecomings. Alternate account TA. Screw those ash hats that show hate. Sounds like you have a wonderful battle plan in action. Hope your son makes the right choices in friends going forward. Am I the idiot for telling my mother-in-law to shove her pizza demands and taking over the rehearsal dinner planning? I'm getting married and I have an insane mother-in-law, got kicked out of hospitals for harassing her cancer doctor, crazy, and she always complains about having to go to a restaurant that has gluten-free options that aren't a salad. She's paying for the rehearsal dinner, and we gave her a long list of places where there's gluten-free options, all in a good price range. She doesn't even know any of the restaurants where I live. Not a single one, except the list we gave her. She witched to my fiancé about it so badly that he straight up said he wouldn't invite her if she kept doing these kinds of things to me, so bravo to him. She always makes sure, literally tells it to my face, that I am a huge inconvenience. I am literally the bride. Added, my friends and family decided if she makes us go somewhere I can't eat, we're all going to go get drinks somewhere and hang out. Everyone is on board and happy to make sure she doesn't come near me during the wedding. I'm not going to let a narcissist ruin our wedding, and my friends are on board to keep her away. I will say hello and goodbye, but if she tries to say anything more, I'm going to walk away and talk to someone else. If she makes a scene at my wedding, well, I'll watch her make a fool of herself and embarrass herself in front of everyone and enjoy the show because no one is ever on her side because of the way she acts. Thanks for the support validation, and kindness. You guys are amazing. Now for a few comments. A commenter said, that's gross behavior. Don't let her be involved in that part of the planning, or any. If you feel it's right, if she's going to act like that, it's literally your wedding. I hope you have an absolutely delicious GF meal with your loved ones and a great wedding. Then OP replied, I didn't even really want a rehearsal dinner because I feel guilty about someone else paying. I sort of don't want to have one again. Another commenter said, she just sounds like an awful person. I don't think it has anything to do with your celiac. You're the bride. The number one priority is you and your partner. OP responded, thank you. I have been so low maintenance, frugal, and just focusing on people having fun, and my BFF keeps having to remind me I am the bride. I think she thinks it's her wedding. Then another commenter added, yes, she's awful. Next time she's rude to your face, tell her she needs to remember the lessons from her parents' generation. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, and grin and bear it. Now for the 1 month update. Well, the situation has been fixed, but I think I almost gave my mother-in-law a stroke. She got a lot more controlling than just the restaurant. Surprise, surprise. First, she called me and screamed that no one in her family can eat at the restaurant we chose, that they all looked at the menu and said they all want pizza. Somewhere I've been glutened before. She said, no one in my entire family can eat there. Everyone will be sick. They all hate it. By the way, not giving a shoot about my family. So, I decided to call each and every one of her family members that are coming to the rehearsal and asked if they were fine with eating what we picked. Turns out, the mother-in-law called everyone trying to get them to agree with her about getting pizza. They all said they told her they wanted the place we picked, and half of them couldn't even eat pizza. So, she just flat out lied, and just really wants pizza. She even started inviting and uninviting whoever she wanted. She was cutting people out of the dinner who actually ate participating in the rehearsal and adding people in who aren't. Well, she called 2 weeks ago and snapped, we're getting pizza and you have no choice. So I told her I'm paying for the rehearsal now, not you. We're gonna go where we want. You can go get pizza. This 76-year-old woman responded by screaming. She didn't scream no or any actual words. She just screamed at the top of her lungs. I hung up, blocked her number. My SO is amazing, and that night sent her a text telling her she is no longer any part of the rehearsal or wedding planning. He's been ignoring her texts since, obviously checking for emergencies, but it's just her saying mean shoot to him. I'm so glad to live 350 miles away from this psycho. I just wanted to eat. What in the frick? Now, for a few comments. A commenter said, if she is as bad as you say she is, and you don't want her at the wedding anymore, hire security. Seen too many posts in other subs about it. It's great when you're waffling on how to delicately approach the situation, and they go nuclear and solve it for you, isn't it? Another commenter suggested, in some locales you can call the local police non-emergency line or drop into the local station and ask about hiring an off-duty officer, in uniform if you wish, to provide security presence at a wedding and reception, and be sure to say they'll get free food too. 8. They may refer you to their local FOP. But young officers are always looking to pick up the odd security job here and there and some extra pay. Their presence tends to have a calming effect on troublemakers. Good luck and best wishes. OP replied, oh, this is so good to know. I frick you not. My entire family is ready to kick her out physically, but I don't want them to have to spoil their time. An officer would be better, and damn it will be funny when she makes a scene. Am I the idiot for considering telling my half-brothers about the abuse I endured from their father? I really need an outside perspective on whether I'd be the AH in this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mom kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mom refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what, she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be his scapegoat for anything that was wrong in life. And I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mom was allowed to keep and raise my brothers as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mom and this man are still together. I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mom would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she'd just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mom talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said they'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind. This could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them. But honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything. I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But well, I know it would be a difficult thing to process. I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So would I be the arsehole if I went through with it? Now for some relevant comments. Global Look 2821. Not wrong. What happened to you is terrible. There's a good chance you'd be talking about what happened to you anyway, since they want to get to know you. But they are not to blame for what their dad and your mother put you through. So if they ask, then ask them if they really want to know the truth of what happened. If they say yes, there's your permission. No address 1159. If the sole reason you want to get in contact with them is to cause issues between them and their brother, then yes, maybe you are wrong. But if you want a relationship with them and the topic comes up, you equally shouldn't have to censor yourself or tell any lies about their father. Wary Scientist. Not passing judgment, but your stepdad and their dad are different people. What do you gain by ruining their image of their dad? Would you be happy if they end up hating their dad and no longer have a relationship with him? Would it make you feel good to strip your brothers of their dad? Because honestly, I don't see a reason for you to poison the well unless that's your endgame, and that would make you TA. I have a half-sister. Our dad was awful for me. He was horrifically hurtful to my mom and abandoned us after never paying child support. He would love bomb and then disappear over and over. If I was unhappy, it was always my fault. My half-sister grew up with a loving and attentive dad. They're super close, and she loves him dearly. She knows that our dad and I have a more difficult past, but I never try to damage her relationship with him. I'm happy she has a dad that is good to her. What would I gain from hurting their relationship? I would hurt her. And he genuinely is a different person, as I'm significantly older than her, and he has matured in that time. I'm not saying that's the case with your stepdad, but I would never hurt my half-sister because of my childhood pain. Now for the update. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past. And that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to Richie and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realize that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Before anything, I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, and then so many were saying I was a coward for not. Some people were saying I was allowing the aggressor to get away with it by not telling my brothers. I had DMs calling me an abuse apologist, people calling me a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. Literally in my last post, I said I was still working on sharing my past in a healthy way with help from my therapist. Yet, I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away. So many people arguing about it one way or the other. It does seem like everything I do, there will be issues. I will upset someone. I know that, and I am trying to navigate this in my own way, so please be respectful of that, even if you would have done it a different way. I am in no way letting SD get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child teen to get him prosecuted. I have accepted that that will never happen. Just know I am a real person who reads the comments. Not everything I do is perfect, but please just be kind. I don't say this to stop people from giving me advice. I love advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post, I have met up with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us, something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind, start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now, and we got talking about me and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that Mum sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories, and clear memories. But he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me naked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out of the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying, and he apologized for bringing it up. I said, "Don't." I was glad he at least remembered some things of my abuse. He said he guessed that the abuse by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said, "Yeah." I asked if SD ever abused either of them, and he said he hadn't ever. But he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never abused them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had, and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault or my fault, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago.